In episode 1 of the Kenobi series, Bail Organa convinces Obi-Wan to leave his 10-year solitude on Tatooine to go help and save Leia Organa. However, Kenobi was very skeptical about this, and his initial reaction was no. So what if Kenobi didn't leave Tatooine to save Leia? After a day's work, Obi-Wan makes his way back to his hut. His droid notifies him that someone is inside. He walks in cautiously to see a cloaked figure facing the opposite direction. The figure turns around to confront Kenobi and reveals that it is Bail Organa. He pleads with Kenobi to go after Leia, but he disagrees. Bail argues that she is of equal importance to Luke, and the only reason he wouldn't go after her is because of his past failures. He pleaded with him to let go of his past failures and go after Leia. He asks Kenobi for one last fight, but he stubbornly says no and asks Bail to leave. Bail gets one last line in and tells Kenobi what a coward he has become, that he is definitely not the man he once knew. Bail leaves and makes his way back to Alderaan. He puts in his own measures to save Leia, but he knows they are somewhat futile. He sends his best squad after his daughter on Daiyu, hoping they can save her. In the meantime, the mercenaries have Leia on Daiyu with Reva close by. Reva has been waiting for this moment for a long time, the opportunity to capture Kenobi. However, she will be significantly disappointed. The mercenaries are attacked by Bail's officers, and the leader calls Reva to her to tell them that they've been attacked and to come at once. Bail's officers defeat the mercenaries and make their way to Leia, but Reva walks in behind them and freezes them with the Force. They stop dead in their tracks. She walks around the room looking at their faces to see which one is Kenobi. She gets to the last one expecting it to be Kenobi. It must be, but it's just another officer. She asks the officers where Kenobi is, but none of them reply. She thinks that Kenobi must have led this group towards Leia, so he didn't have to show his face and risk exposure. She uses her ability, Mind Probe, on all of the officers' minds to find out where Kenobi is, whilst his officers carry out their mission. One by one she is disappointed, as she doesn't sense Kenobi in any of the officers' thoughts. River backs up against the wall. She was sure Kenobi would come, for his close friend Bail's daughter. Did the Force lie to her? Whilst these thoughts are whizzing through her head, one of the officers makes a run for it. However, he is too slow. Reva pulls him back with the Force and pierces his chest with her blade. Anger has taken over Reva as she makes her way from officer to officer, taking a life one by one. All that's left is Leia, who she looks upon with the deepest hatred. She was supposed to be the key, but turned out to be useless. Before Reva does anything irrational, the Grand Inquisitor walks into the room and takes Reva's lightsaber from her with the Force. Reva has gone behind the Grand Inquisitor's back for the last time. The Grand Inquisitor explains how she is the bottom of the Inquisitors and how dare she go behind his back and kidnap an Imperial Senator's daughter. Reva claps back, saying that the Grand Inquisitor is a failure, as he has never found Kenobi, but he stops her mid-sentence. He doesn't need to hear it. He explains how Vader will decide how to discipline her. He is already on his way. The Grand Inquisitor takes Leia and Reva to their ship, where the other two Inquisitors are, waiting for Lord Vader's arrival. The shadow of Lord Vader's Imperial shuttle covers the dark planet of Daiyu. The ship lands next to the Inquisitor's transport scythe, and Vader makes his way out. Vader meets with the Inquisitors and asks what the meaning of this is. He has very many things to attend to. The Grand Inquisitor explains the incompetence of Reva, and how her ability to follow orders has led to her even kidnapping an Imperial Senator's daughter. The Grand Inquisitor asks that Vader is disciplined accordingly, and reminded about the level of command. Vader can't help but sense a presence he's felt before, in his past life. He doesn't care about Reva. She could be dead and it would mean nothing to him. "Bring me the daughter," Vader mutters, as the Grand Inquisitor has a shocked look on his face. He goes to argue, but Vader explains that there will be consequences if he has to ask for a second time. The fifth brother brings in a young Leia, who is fighting her captor. Under Vader's helmet, his eyes widen. He even skips a breath. The girl looks identical to Padme and has the same presence within the Force. It can't be Padme's daughter, can it? She would be the right age, goes through his head. The Jedi have deceived him. This has to be Kenobi's doing, he thinks. The daughter of Padme and Anakin is alive. Vader explains how the girl will come with him, and the Grand Inquisitor is to discipline Reva how he sees fit. Before he leaves, Vader asks whose daughter it is, where Reva replies Bail Organa, to which then it all makes sense to Vader. Vader takes Leia off-world in his ship. The presence of Padme is overwhelming, a presence he has desired and longed for 10 long years. They sit in silence before Vader asks who her parents are. Leia tells Vader that she will not tell her anything. Vader can't help enjoy this. the exact response Padme would have given. Vader tells her that she will tell him whether she wants to or not, and to make this easy. Leia, although young, can tell Vader is telling the truth. Maybe she senses this within him. She tells Vader that she is the daughter of Bail and Breha Organa, but is not their biological daughter, and was adopted shortly after she was born. This confirms it for Vader. It all makes sense. The pieces are coming together. They exit hyperspace with Alderaan in their view. They land at the Organa residence and walk out together to be greeted by Bail and his wife, as well as a few of their guards. Bail acknowledges Vader by Lord Vader and thanks him for returning his daughter. Although he means this, he cannot help but be filled with fear. What is Darth Vader doing with his daughter? Vader replies, saying they should speak inside, and Bail knows he doesn't have a choice and invites him in. Bail ushers Vader to sit down but stands there with Leia between his arms. Vader explains how he knows the girl is Padme's daughter, and he demands they tell him everything. Bail is taken aback. He did not expect this. He stutters, and Vader tells him that he should not have to repeat himself. Bail explains how it is not possible and that Padme died before birth. Enraged, Vader force chokes and hoists Bail up into the air. Enraged, Vader force chokes Bail and hoists him up into the air. Vader yells at him. He knows he is lying. He drops Bail and releases him from his hold. Vader tells Bail that he didn't kill Padme on Mustafar and felt through the Force that Padme was still alive. It was too late before Vader realized what he had said. Bail goes to mutter Anakin's name, but before he can do this, he force pushes Bail against the back wall. Bail tells Vader that Padme did survive long enough to give birth to Padme, but died shortly after. He concludes saying that Padme's last words was that there was still good left in Anakin Skywalker. This should make Vader furious, but it doesn't. It almost feels good to hear his name again, especially if it is about Padme. Vader mutters his name, Anakin Skywalker. Bail asks Vader if it's Anakin in there, but Vader doesn't really hear him. His mind is all over the place, fueled by conflict. The child of Anakin Skywalker and Padme Amidala is alive. Vader asks Bail to tell him more about her death, and he does so, but does not mention Luke. He tells Vader that Padme lost the will to live, and repeats himself that she believed Anakin could be redeemed. This makes Vader feel more guilt, not just because him turning to the dark side caused her to lose the will to live, but the fact that she believed there was still good in him and he hadn't lived up to that. He looks over to Leia, who stares back up at him. Vader thinks this is his chance, the chance Padme wanted him to have, the chance to venture back into the light. He knows secretly that he has been looking for a reason to do so. Vader tells Bail that he is Anakin Skywalker, Leia's real father. Leia looks upon Bail with disbelief. She doesn't believe what she has just heard. Bail tells Vader that Padme would want him to continue down this current path and that there is still hope for redemption. Vader tells Bail that he agrees and that his daughter being alive will carry on Padme's legacy. Vader has successfully journeyed back into the light. Bail's wife takes Leia off her to another room, and Bail and Vader discuss the rebellion against the Empire. He tells Vader that it's still in early days and there are rebel factions scattered around the galaxy, but they are not united. He continues to say that the real work can be done when they unite. Vader asks about any remaining Jedi that could come together to help out the cause. Bail knows he is taking a risk, but believes Vader has redeemed himself after hearing about Padme's death and discovering that his daughter is alive. But for now, he will keep Luke's identity secret. Bail explains how he knows a few are alive, including Yoda and Kenobi, but he tells Vader that it is unlikely that they will come back. Vader tells Bail that with the help of the remaining Jedi, plus an inside man in the Empire, that together they can overthrow the Emperor and take everything back. The Emperor stole everything from them. It's time to take it all back. Bail is tasked with reaching out to the remaining Jedi, and Vader will go back to his life in the Empire and begin taking measures against the Emperor. Vader comes and watches his daughter every few days, but she doesn't notice him, and he doesn't want her to see him yet. He is embarrassed of what he has become and doesn't want her to see him like this. Vader and Bail meet again. He had contacted multiple Jedi who have shown interest in uniting again, but it explains how Kenobi has rejected the call. Vader is shocked that even after Bail told him that Anakin was alive, that he said no. Vader asks Bail where Kenobi is and that he will see him himself. Together, Vader and Bail make their way to Obi Wan's hut to find no one home. Bail tells Vader that he will be at work and will be back soon. They hear Obi Wan's alarm droid go off as Kenobi arrives home. Obi Wan enters his cave to see the glooming figure of Darth Vader, more machine than man. Obi Wan whispers his name and Vader acknowledges that it is him. Kenobi tells Bail that he had already rejected their offer and he's not coming back. Vader tells Kenobi that he has made mistakes, but that he wants to redeem himself. He wants to live up to the standards Padme set for him. I know what I have done is inexcusable, but I want to do whatever I can to make things as right as possible, Vader explains. Obi-Wan mumbles and grabs his chin. Vader continues to tell Kenobi to think about the future of the galaxy, the future for Padme's daughter. He tells Kenobi that only together they can defeat the Emperor and restore the galaxy to how it used to be. Obi-Wan contemplates in his head, but knows what Vader is saying is correct. Obi-Wan agrees and tells them that he will take them to Yoda. Thanks for watching, guys. I'm going to leave it here, and let me know if you want a part 2. We finished off part 1 with Bail Organa and Darth Vader convincing Obi-Wan Kenobi to join them in their fight against the Emperor. Obi-Wan agrees and tells them that he will take them to see Yoda to seek out his guidance. As they leave Obi-Wan's hut, Vader hears a voice in his mind. A name he isn't familiar with. He shrugs it off. It's just his imagination, he thinks. The Force playing tricks on him. He takes a few more steps forward and hears it again. He stops in his tracks and Obi-Wan turns around and asks Vader what's wrong. He tells him that he senses a presence on this planet, but he can't focus on what it is. Obi-Wan looks at Bail. The two know who Vader is sensing. Vader notices their expressions and asks them to tell him what they know. Obi-Wan nods in approval to Bail. He can sense the light inside Vader. He can sense Anakin, a feeling he hasn't felt since before the dark times. Bail explains to Vader how Padme gave birth not to one, but 2 children. The second one was a boy who was sent to Tatooine to live with his aunt and uncle. Vader drops to one knee. If there was any hint of dark still in him, it has been completely driven out now. He doesn't just have a daughter to live for, but a son, here on Tatooine, his home planet. He looks up at the sky, wondering whether Padme is watching him from above, whether she can see how her children brought him back into the light, where he was meant to be all this time. Vader will make her proud. Bail asks Vader whether he wants to go find Luke and bring him back with them. Kenobi interjects and explains how Owen, Luke's uncle, will not give him up easily. He elaborates to say that for the time being, it is probably best to leave him on Tatooine out of danger until they have a concrete plan for what to do next. Vader obviously wants to go see Luke now, but he knows that it is the right thing to do. Obi-Wan tells the two that Yoda is on Dagobah, in the Outer Rim, and they head there straight away. They land Bail's ship on the swamp planet of Dagobah. Kenobi wonders in his mind if the old master was still even here after all these years. The three exit the ship and stand in the open swamp, each glaring around the terrain to see what they can spot. However, all they see is dense trees and mush. Behind them, a small green Yoda appears, hobbling with his wooden stick. Yoda looks at Kenobi and asks what Vader is doing here. Kenobi explains the situation, how Vader discovered Leia and Luke were his children and how he believes Vader has journeyed back into the light. Vader doesn't know what to say to the old master. He can barely look at him without being flooded with extreme guilt. Yoda asks Kenobi what this has to do with him. Obi-Wan tells Yoda that they both were prepared to come out of hiding when the time was right. He says that there is no better chance now to take on the Emperor. With Vader at their side, his children as well as them, the two masters, would be able to unite the rebellion and draw out other Jedi in hiding to help their cause. Yoda thinks about this for a second and looks at Vader. He calls him by his real name, Skywalker. Vader stares down Yoda, who asks Vader if Anakin is still in there. Vader tells Yoda that he is fully Anakin again, and that his days of darkness, although too long, are finally over. Yoda spends a good moment thinking about it until a voice interrupts them. The voice says, "He is back, Master. I know you can sense it." Yoda and Obi-Wan look up. They know who it is, but the others are unaware and confused. The voice continues to say that Anakin is the chosen one, and although his path has not been straightforward, nothing can stop him from achieving his destiny of bringing balance to the Force. Vader realizes who this voice is and yells out his name. But the voice has disappeared. Yoda looks at Vader and tells him that he senses no darkness within him. He will join them. This is the time to reveal themselves. Now, the four travel back to Alderaan to discuss their plan for the rebellion. Before they begin, a ship lands outside Bail's office where they are meeting. The three Jedi ask Bail if he was expecting anyone else. Bail tells them that he never lost contact with an old friend, and that she was eager to help when she heard of their return. The ship's doors open and out walks Ahsoka Tano. She gets to the door and stops in her tracks when she looks at Vader. She mutters his name and he does the same.
Ahsoka.
Anakin.
She rushes over to him and embraces him. She only senses the light within him. She apologizes for leaving him all those years ago and how she feels responsible for what happened. Vader tells her to stop being foolish and only he is responsible for his past. He thanks her for joining them, and she makes her way to Obi-Wan and Yoda, greeting them for the first time in 10 years. Bail gets things underway. He explains how the rebellion ultimately has to be led by the Jedi. The Jedi used to be the beacons of hope in the galaxy, and they can be once more. If the people see that the Jedi are fighting against the tyranny of the Empire, they will rally behind them, as they once did. Ultimately, this is what will unite the various factions of rebels all throughout the galaxy. The first move must be to find and recruit as many remaining Jedi as they can. Bail asks if anyone knows of anything left. Ahsoka speaks first. She says how she knows of Caleb Doom, now Kanan Jarrus. Yoda says how through Qui-Gon, he knows where Quinlan Vos has been hiding all these years. Bail asks Kenobi if he knows of any, but he does not. Vader tells them that the Inquisitors had a lead on Cal Kestis on Corellia, and that Kenobi should find him there. He then says that Gungi, the Wookiee Jedi, is alive at Inquisitor base. Bail tells them that they each need to go find the remaining Jedi, explain to them the plan, and bring them back to Alderaan. Bail says that he will send word to each of the rebel factions and invite their leaders to a meeting on Alderaan, where they will all unite the rebels and begin the rebellion against the Empire. They set off with their respective missions and plan to meet in 1 week's time. Vader makes his way to the fortress on the moons of Mustafar. He knows the Inquisitors will sense the light within him, and he plans to use this to his advantage. Vader's ship touches ground, and the 5 Inquisitors present on the base go to greet him. The Grand Inquisitor at the front goes to acknowledge Lord Vader, but he senses something is off. Before he can say anything, Vader has gripped his body with the Force and pierces him with his blade. Maintaining his speed, he pulls the second sister Reva towards him and decapitates her with one strike. The 5th brother, 3rd sister, and 7th sister ignite their blades with a shocked look on their face. Vader advances and engages all 3. Although it's a 3-on-1, they are no match for the redeemed Dark Lord. One by one they fall as Vader makes his way to the fortress and retrieves Gungi. A week passes and the pivotal meeting that will decide the fate of the galaxy has arrived. The room is filled with various rebel faction leaders from around the galaxy, including Sol Guerrera, Mon Mothma, and Hera Syndulla, all with the same goal of destroying the Empire. Ahsoka, Kenobi, and Yoda were all successful in recruiting their Jedi. Now Quinlan Vos, Cal Kestis, Gungi, and Caleb Doom have rejoined the fight. Bail begins the meeting. He leads by explaining to everyone that only together they can take down and defeat the Empire. Bail says that with the help of Vader, previously an apprentice to the Emperor, now turned good, has helped them recruit the Jedi back into the fight. There are a few mutters in the crowd, with a few yelling out why they should trust him and that they know what he has done. Bail explains that without Vader, none of them would be there. There would be no rebellion, no hint of the Jedi returning to the fight. Now, with all of us combining our forces, plus the Jedi leading us, not only will we be able to recruit more people to the rebellion to strengthen our forces, but also track down every remaining Jedi that will fight for the cause. There are murmurs of agreements and nods within the crowd. The end of the Empire sounds good to them. Vader takes stage and explains to the rebels how Sidious gives the illusion that he spends most of his time at his palace on Coruscant. However, this is to deceive the public, and he spends most of his time at the Imperial Citadel on Biss. Only the closest to the Emperor know this, so it is not heavily defended. If the rebels want to defeat the Emperor, they must attack the planet of Biss. Bail steps up and agrees on behalf of everyone. He elaborates to say how the plan for the coming weeks is to spread word of the rebellion, and to seek out other rebel patriots to expand their forces. The raid on Biss will take place in a month's time. Vader will not reveal his betrayal to the Emperor until the last moment and will use this to confirm the Emperor's presence on the planet. Cheers erupt in the room and drown out any attempt at speech. Everyone is given hope, a real chance that the Emperor's defeat is near. In a month's time, the time has come. Vader doesn't regularly check in with the Emperor. Sometimes they go months without speaking. The Emperor always summons Vader, not the other way around, but this time is different. Vader beams Sidious, who asks Vader why he killed the Inquisitors a month ago, but before Sidious finishes, his eyes turn a deep yellow and stares down Vader. He mutters his name, Anakin Skywalker. Vader stands in silence, his mechanical breathing taking over as he attempts to sense Sidious's location on Biss. Sidious explains how he knew this would eventually happen, how he knew the Skywalker blood in him was weak. Vader tells Sidious how his manipulation of a young innocent boy will be his downfall. Vader ends the transmission and leaves Sidious confused until he senses it. The rebellion has assembled its fleet. Their goal was successful in recruiting as many patriots to the Republic that they could. And now that Vader has confirmed Sidious's location on Biss, the time has come to end the Empire. Hundreds of ships came out of hyperspace at once and began firing upon Sidious's fortress. As soon as Vader ended their call, Sidious deployed what defenses he had, but there is no way it could beat the rebel fleet. Sidious ordered for the closest available fleet to make its way to his location, but there wouldn't be enough time. Vader discloses to the rebels that Sidious would attempt to make his escape through his underground tunnel system that goes to the other side of the planet, so this was targeted and bombed first, and blocked. Sidious simply had nowhere to go. He used the Force to evade the rubble crumbling down around him, but eventually one slab of rock would knock him to the ground. In the meantime, the rebels defeat what defenses there are, but then multiple Star Destroyers with TIE fighters emerge from hyperspace and fire upon the rebels. The rebels knew this would happen, so orders were given to a second wave of rebels to come out of hyperspace right behind the Star Destroyers and instantly fire upon them. There is a little skirmish in the orbit, but this wouldn't last long. The few Star Destroyers are no match for the combined rebel alliance. Meanwhile, Vader makes his way to the Emperor's fortress. He can still sense his presence. He lands and walks to where the Emperor was, his legs crushed by rocks and his left arm simply flattened. He walks to where the Emperor was. He is using all of his Force energy to maintain his body's systems and stop them from failing. When he sees Vader coming towards him, he looks away in disgust. He knows what is about to happen. Vader ignites and stabs Sidious through his chest. He mutters as he pulls his blade out. Thanks for watching part 2 guys. Please let me know what you think in the comments below and leave a like.